what was happening internally at that point? You know, was there still like some ego stuff kind of starting to bubble up, and was the label having much influence or input on what you guys were doing?
The ego things were probably higher than it's ever been now at this point. You know, you got Walter, who had, you know, had success on Brick House singing the lead, and then of course desiring to lead more songs. We had what we call the welfare program, and it was designed to keep guys involved. Some of them obviously weren't as creative as others, so we would sort of ghostwrite for that person or whatever, just to get their names on the records, to make sure that, you know, to try to make sure that everybody felt a part of. Then, of course, after Three Times a Lady, Kenny Rogers approached a manager to solicit a song. And of course, Lionel had been writing, you know, the ballads, and very successfully. And he and I co-wrote, you know, most of the songs on our albums when you look at the total songs, number of songs recorded. And so I had a unique relationship, obviously being the founder of the group and having recruited Lionel and recruited all the guys. So there was an obligation, I felt, to sort of try to keep down some of the whatever energy that was bubbling to a minimum. And then of course you have Motown Records, who has successfully had Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and then Smokey do his solo album, and then of course David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks, and you know, then you had Gladys Knight and the Pips, and then Gladys did her successful solo album,
Diana Ross,
and Diana Ross and the Supremes, you know what I mean? So you had that element nagging at Lionel, saying, hey, you know, you should do your own album, and you know. And so of course Kenny Rogers' manager, Ken Cragen, who managed Kenny, you know, he when the offer came up to collaborate with him, our manager, instead of presenting it to the band as a project, he presented it to Lionel as a project, in hopes of trying to avoid Lionel from signing with Ken Cragen as a solo, as a solo art, as a, you know, a single artist or whatever. So you had management trying to keep things together, but at the same time trying to grow, which was a normal thing. You know, it's like no managers at Urban Azoff or anybody else managed just one act, you know. So Benny Ashburn had earned the right, in my opinion, to reach out and not just be exclusively obligated to the Commodores. But then you had some of the guys not really feeling that. You know, I talk about this in my book, you know, Rock and Soul, and it's a great read. It gives a little insight on some of the internal things that not only was a crucial part of what was happening, but it played into actually the music and everything, you know, and the creativity. So Lionel invited me, obviously, to participate with the Kenny Rogers project. The album was huge. I mean, Lady just went 10 million units, you know, and he and I co-wrote another song called "Without You in My Life" for that project, and then here comes Diana Ross with "Endless Love," you know, wanting a Lionel Richie song, and of course, now meantime the band is like, they're looking at me like, oh, this guy, he's over there with Lionel, and then he comes back over here with us, and then he goes back over there with Lionel, versus looking at it like, oh man, let's use the Rolling Stone as our model. Sure, in order to be a super act, we gotta have a Mick Jagger. We gotta have a Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? We gotta have a Lionel Richie. And that's a good thing. You know, but they didn't quite see it like that. It was like, oh man, you know, he's gonna leave us, and then we're gonna be strapped, and you know, we can't, you know, allow this to happen. You know? So, but at the same time,
were you kind of pulling your hair out over this?
Oh yeah, meantime I'm pulling my hair out because, you know, I'm like reminding all these guys, hey, look, Lionel, had I not talked to your grandparents, you know, and convincing them to let you be in the band, you know, let's revert back to those grounded days. Oh, guys, Walter, you know, you was in this other band. You remember, you were so happy to be a part of this band. You wanted to sign your life away for a weekly salary. I said, no, I'm gonna make you a part of this. You know, and of course, you know, William King was not the most creative person in the world, but we still gave him credits. You know, ghost writing or whatever we had to do whatever we had to do, you know, to the welfare program, we call it, you know. So, but at the same time, we had an album that we had to do, you know. And so you have James Carmichael, who is like a, you know, the brilliant guy that he is. And is humble and, you know, very, very kind. Gentlemen, let's get back on 217. That was our slogan, you know. So 217 is a chapter in my book as well, and we talk about that, how we would use 217, page 217, as a it was a make.
Touchstone.
Yes.
Is that a Bible page or what is that?
No. Page 217 is a page where everybody's on the same page, and everybody's on one accord, and everybody is you know, hands on board, and you know, we're moving forward.
What was the significance of those numbers, though? Anything?
No. Just happened to be a number, 217.
So did Lionel leave on his own accord? Did he get pushed out? How did that split happen?
Well, it's when you look at all of the internal elements that's going on. Lionel is one of those guys that, you know, he is sometimes it's hard. He's a Gemini. So it's hard for him sometimes, you know, he'll say yes, but then in his heart, he knows he really should have said no.
People pleaser.
People pleaser. Right. And so with that being said, it's like, yeah, it's who doesn't want to do a solo record? You know, if you have an opportunity, that's a natural thing. And but to the media, he was like, "Oh man, I will never leave the Commodores." The Commodores, and not they're and the word gets around that maybe he's leaving, and no, he I'm not. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, But at the same time, guys pushing him out with things that weren't conducive for being there. You know what I mean? So, excuse me, because you can't allow insecurities, envy, jealousy, and all that stuff because that's typically what happens to bands. And so my thing was, okay, guys, we're not going to be like those other guys, you know what I mean? And, it's kind of like a kid walking down the block with the kids that he grew up with and see the kids across town and say, man, kids across town, man, they get in trouble all the time. We're not going to be like that, And you point out all the stuff that happens and that causes that kind of stuff that happen. Even though you point it all out, before you know it, it's like, whoa, are we those guys across town?
Well, I'm thinking, you said you wanted to be the Black Beatles, but I don't think you meant it that you would get that kind of, turmoil within the group.
Exactly. But that's exactly what happened. The wives got involved, and next thing the wives not getting along. So now, next thing it's filtered over into the group meetings, and one thing leads to another,
Do you anticipate that Lionel would have that degree of success on his own record?
No, I don't think he did either. And because nobody had at that point. Diana Ross hadn't, Gladys Knight hadn't, Smokey Robinson hadn't, nobody at Motown. And so, but with the marketing and of course, James Carmichael being there, a part of that whole creative machine, man, it was amazing. I mean, when Truly came out, it just kept that same momentum going that we had started. And of course, a lady, 10 million units. Come on, that's like, whoa, And so we knew that the amount of consistent number ones that he had was just unbelievable. It was like,
it was shocking. Yeah,
it was. And so he and I, remained friends and just kept going back to the band, the guys, and saying, look, man, it's gonna be okay. We, the Rolling Stones. Remember, if it's not the Black Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Use that model,
Yeah, they go on forever.
Right.
I got to ask you, Thomas. So, always was curious, and now that I have you, why did both the Commodores and even when Lionel went off on his own, why did the funk side of it get put to the back burner so much? More ballads, more sort of pop, and
right.
Funk really took a back seat. Why do you think that happened on both the Commodores and in Lionel's case too?
Well, part of it was the record label. Yeah, I mean, I think you alluded to that earlier with other groups. Why did they chase that sound? You know, the label at that time was like, okay, well, we're gonna, the ballads are working, and I don't care what you guys put on the record, we're gonna look for that ballad.
Hmm.
So,
how did you feel about that?
oh man, I didn't really. I felt like a part of me was being smothered in a way that was blasphemous, I guess I could say, because it's burning down in there, and you kind of putting a lid on it, and it was. I never forget one night I was. You know how you have these moments sometimes, and you go, okay, I'm thankful this is very successful, but I would love to just go on a funk ride here. And but I look back at even now. I look at Bruno Mars and how the funk is coming back in a huge way. You were sampling acts of sampling stuff from that era, and and Ray Parker and Jr. and I were talking yesterday, and he said, "Man, just call T-Mac up if you want. You don't have to sample anything else. Just." But it's amazing how.
So I was going to say, it's interesting though. You said that the label was really so keen on the ballads, but you would think also that maybe they would have said, "Hey, replicate Brick House again," also. But
yeah, you would think that, but when you look at the fact that Easy, for instance, is for a trivia thing, Easy is the most played song in the history of Motown. Hmm. So when you look at the dollars and the cents, it makes most sense to chase the dollar.
There's irony there, though, that maybe you've probably seen before, in that, you guys had so much freedom and you stuck to your guns in the beginning, but then when you achieve such success, it's almost like some of that freedom was scaled back.
That's an excellent point, Scott. I think when I think about it, some of that freedom got lost in some of the hogwash, the sideshows. In the beginning, we didn't allow any of that stuff to cloud the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We stayed focused, and it was like, okay, this is who we are. This is, because it took time developing that signature sound, mm-hmm. and to just walk away from it, was not a natural thing.
So you stuck around for a couple more albums, Heroes and In the Pocket, I think you're also on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Heroes, you really didn't get a big hit off that, but In the Pocket had Lady, which got you guys back on the chart, and Oh No.
Heroes, we purposely wanted to. We had never done a gospel album. So Jesus is Love was a big hit from that album, and it in fact it's still being played today.
Old Fashioned Love got some play too, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why did you finally exit the band? And or I guess it was around 1983, 84?
84, yeah, right. Well, I wanted to when you look at what had happened with Lionel, leaving, the band was kind of like at a point where I thought we needed to make some real strategic moves, and versus trying to find somebody that looked like Lionel and chasing that whole image and sound. I thought the smartest thing would have been to do like the Doobie Brothers. When Michael McDonald didn't sound anything like the previous lead singer, and they, made another creative statement that kept going, and I wanted to do something like that. I wanted to even entertain maybe a female or anything or any sound that was different, so that creatively we could keep going and keep, go back to the funk and go, back into other innovative places.
You wanted to grow.
Yeah, I wanted to grow. And those guys, they were stuck on trying to find somebody that sound and look like Lionel Richie. And I was like, gentlemen, this is not, this, in my opinion, the best move, because Lionel is going to be Lionel. You can't, trying to find somebody that looked like Lionel is not going to fool the audience to make them think Lionel is still up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, management was very important. They kept picking managers that were dead end streets, and that's a very important part of the team. And if you don't have vision at the top, then it's not a good look.
I would say, especially in the 80s, when it really got to be corporate, in the record business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you put out a solo record, though, self-titled in '84. And were you pleased with how that came out? Did it come out how you had envisioned? And what about how it was accepted? You didn't do another one after that. What are your feelings about that solo record?
I was in a crossfire, if you will. And that I'll explain. Motown felt like, okay, if I left, Lionel had left. If I left, then that's, is really not really good for the band. But at the same time, from all the stuff I described to you, the band was not really the same thinking wise, so they said, well, look, why don't we'll do an album on you. If you want to do an album, and you can still be in the band, do an album, and do whatever. And at that time, it was so much going on, you know, with Lionel, me, the band, and I just really kind of rushed in and did something just because they were putting pressure on me. But at the same time, they didn't promote it. They put the Commodores, which I had worked on, and that's a funny story too about Nightshift. I played a demo for one of the songs, and it sounded a lot like Nightshift.
Oh no.
But anyway, that's another story. They released Nightshift, my record, and Lionel's record at the same time. So those three components, who do you think they're gonna put the money behind? I mean, you know.
Well, and I was going to ask you about Nightshift, and now that you told me that information, I can imagine. But you know, of course, that was the one and only real hit for the Commodores after Lionel.
Right.
Amazingly, I think as amazing as some of those other things you told me, like Easy being the most played Motown song of all time, and the Attendance record you guys set, and Machine Gun being the first gold record. See, I remember all those things. I think just as amazing is that Nightshift is the only Grammy that the Commodores got.
Exactly. And I don't know, Scott, if you're familiar with how the Grammy Awards are, you know, that whole thing is about block voting. We've had, the Commodores have had, I don't know, what, 7 or 8 nominations or whatever for Grammys. And Motown being a small label, unless you can get other labels to block vote with you, it's almost impossible to win a Grammy with just the votes that you have internally as a small label. Mm-hmm. So I think it was kind of more or less, I don't know if you call it poetic justice or sympathy, you know, but we had been nominated so many times and hadn't won. And so with this one opportunity, now by this time, Motown had also sold to Universal. So that was the deciding factor. Universal was now distributing Motown, which gave a Motown artist more votes from a Grammy perspective. Mm. So that's why Nightshift won a Grammy at that time, because for the first time now, Motown is not just utilizing their little votes to try to win, you know, and to network with other, a small label has to network with the larger ones in order to win Grammys.
You know, the system sounds about, it's working as well as our presidential voting system right now, but we'll get into
that. Yeah, that's right. It's almost like that. You can have, if you don't have the electoral votes, I don't care how many popular votes you get, you know, it's the same kind of deal with those Grammys. You gotta have votes from other labels to win.
For me, all the other Commodore Grammy nominations I would put ahead of Nightshift, but
you and me both.
In talking about this amazing catalog of music, Thomas, is there any track sort of buried in there that is a kind of a hidden gem, in your opinion, that you think people ought to go back and listen to and really pay attention to?
Yes.
What?
Come Inside is one that comes to mind. It's a very
Hot on the Tracks?
So
We're moving on. It's either Moving On or Hot on the Tracks.
I think it is either. Yeah, I think it is Hot on the Tracks.
Yep, got it.
Yeah. Welcome Home is 13. Trying to think of some others. Excuse me. Those are the two that comes right off the top of my head, though.
All right, so people go out there, go back and give those another listen. So, Thomas, what are some of the highlights of your career or life in a nutshell, from the later 80s until more recently?
Well, I am very happy to say that I've been happily married, to a wife 25 years, and my kids are incredible kids. I have triplet boys and
Wow.
twin girls, and they are all musically inclined, but they also have other attributes that are just amazing. International business majors, and they speak several languages, and they are very articulate. In fact, there's a television producers that are extended a possible television show for them, and it is one of the most gratifying things for me now to perform live with them. With my act is called the Commodores Experience, featuring Thomas McClary, founder of the Commodores, and to have them as co-writers now of some new material that we're doing. It is really, really, really exciting to continue the funk, if you will, in a way with the millennium now being my kids. And to still have a relationship with Lionel and the guys, even though the guys sued me.
What's with that?
Right.
What can you say on that? Can you say whatever you want?
Yeah, it's amazing. The guys. One thing that Benny Ashburn did that and I talk about this in my book, so it's not it's not like I'm giving up some secrets. So
I wouldn't mind, but I don't want to get you in trouble either.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And since it's still in litigation, maybe I should just I'll just say this though. I look at life and how you can have all the things in the world, but if you don't have joy and peace, all these things don't mean anything, and I've been fortunate to have joy and peace, and even those guys, I still love them. And I'm still trying to do a reunion, despite the fact, and I think that and I even tell Lionel, I don't care, American Idol, all the stuff that you do, until you do a reunion, you still would not have become as big as you can, because the reunion of the guys, of the original guys, is still what a lot of fans want to see.
No question. How could they not? I think also if you guys manage to do that, it might, not that you maybe care about it, but it might help get Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recognition, which I think also is long overdue.
That's Scott. That's amazing you were saying. Yeah, I agree with you. And there's egos has a way of envy, and jealousy has a way of eating away at things that could be. I mean, yeah, we're legends in terms of what we've done, with the music and being the first band to in Motown Records to go gold and all this stuff, sell hundreds of millions of records around the world. I mean, it's not a country in the world that we can't go to and not hear one of our songs, that's all great, But the greatest thing I think still is to come back together. If it's not, but just for a farewell. I mean, you look at the Eagles. I'll never forget thank God, before Glenn passed away, they still had, they got back together.
And yeah, they had bitter disagreements.
Yeah, they did. It's like hell freezes over before they got back together. You know what I'm saying? But they took that, and that's called taking a lemon and making lemonade out of it. You know what I mean? And I see the Commodores as the same kind of a thing, but had the shoe been on the other foot, I don't think the chances of a reunion probably would be, out of the window. But just so happened, they sued me, and I am a forgiving guy. So I'm not, if tomorrow that phone call came like, hey man, let's do this and get this, reunion going, I'll be the first, leading the pack.
Obviously you got to put differences aside and think of what the fans want and think of the legacy enduring forever. Yeah. Some things are bigger than individuals.
That's it. Well, they sued me for trademark infringement. Trademark infringement.
How can you do that of the first Commodore?
Right. Isn't that funny? That is funny.
That's what I would say to the judge.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing what goes on though in the music industry. Unbelievable. Crazy stuff like with war and just nuts stuff out there. But we're all very hopeful and just very glad to hear that you're open to it if it ever has the opportunity to materialize. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in the meantime, are you playing any shows, in the States, or can people?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes. Atlantic City. My next show. We're all over the place. We just did Europe. London, Switzerland, Germany.
I saw a clip of you on Facebook. I think you were serenading someone at an airport or something.
Oh yeah. That was in London. That was crazy. In fact, I'll send you some links of some of our live stuff.
I love it.
Oh man, we you talking about high energy. This is one song. Mr. Cool Breeze. I mean, every time we perform this live, it's like killer. You know, it's so hot. This is the only song that we can follow Brick House with. You know.
I don't know if it's anything like it, but it just makes me think of Mr. Cool by Brothers Johnson.
Oh yeah, yeah, you know that song? Yeah, Scott. Why you check it out, Scott?
Yeah, that was a jam.
Yeah, it's a hot jam. Yeah.
So how can folks keep up with you, Thomas?
Okay. I told Beryl to give me this information because I had, you know, my social media people, they do all this stuff. And they like, Thomas, you gotta commit this to memory. This is ridiculous, you know. But Instagram, it's Thomas _McClary, and of course, I can be my website is thomasmcclary.com, and you can also Facebook. Twitter and all that stuff is the same.
And the book is in hardcover, and you can get it at Amazon, and
Yeah.
is it available everywhere, or just Amazon? Or
Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, and what's the other website? Well, they can get it on my website as well. And in fact, the book is called Rock and Soul. And it's man, it's getting great reviews, so we're excited about it.
how long did it take you to do that?
Took me a year, which is kind of fast compared to what I've heard with some other writers, you know. But it took me a year, but I worked on it, you know, almost every day, I guess, 3 days a week at least.
Well, it seems like from what I know, in the little we know each other, I feel like once you get focused on something, you zero in pretty good. So.
Oh yes, yeah. In fact, I'm gonna send you a copy of the book. That's right. I'm gonna send you a copy of the book, and I'll be interested to hear, you know, your comments.
That'd be fantastic. I'm a little behind in my reading. To give you an idea, I just finished Maurice White's book, and that came out December of 2016. So
right.
But I definitely would love that. So thank you.
Yes.
And you know, I want to thank you so much for spending so much time with me and for coming on Truth and Rhythm. You know, you talked about finding joy in life. This was joy for me, getting to talk to you about all this great Commodores history. So thank you.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much for your time and interest in wanting to talk to me. And I want to thank all those fans out there too for all that support over these years. And fasten your seatbelt, because we've got a rock and soul project that's coming out musically as well. So if you're still hungry for some of that, you know, signature sound of the Commodores, you're gonna get it with this new record that we got coming out.
All right, we're gonna hold you to that. Check back with you in a year or so.
You got it.
Did I tell you? Incredible stories and so much inside baseball into the Commodore's process, songs, records, and history. I got to tell you, I gained a better understanding of why they moved away from the deep funk and soul that drew me to them initially, and that gave me an appreciation of their songcraft and talent, even as they eventually got too mellow and too mainstream for my tastes. A huge thanks to my special guest, Mr. Thomas McClary, a guiding force of the mighty Commodores, who, in my opinion, should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So voters, wake up and let's get them in. As always, once again, a sincere thank you to you, the viewers and listeners of Truth and Rhythm. Be sure to be on the lookout for upcoming episodes of Truth and Rhythm and catch up with previous installments at funkandstuff.net, on YouTube, iTunes, and other leading providers. very important, please subscribe on YouTube to the Funk and Stuff channel where Truth and Rhythm lives. We need that support. Show these great artists that you believe in them, you support them, and that you love the funk, R&B, and jazz that they've brought to all of us through the years. Subscribe, get friends to subscribe. We need it. Thank you. Much appreciated. And I want to hear from you. Write me at scottg@funkandstuff.net and tell me what you like about the show, who else you want to see on the program. Been hearing from a lot of folks out there, and it's fantastic. So keep it going. It's a two-way street. The show is for you. So with that, as always, this is Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine signing off by saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.